morning, this is Dr. G reporting live from the Manatee Viewing Center in Apollo Beach. So I actually work down at the Suncoast Youth Conservation Center, and we're going to be reading to you today so that you can learn a little bit about the Florida manatee. We're going to share with you the story of Sam the Seacow. This is a book written in 1979 by Ms. Francine Jacobs with illustrations by Laura Kelly. And then after the book, we'll tell you a little bit more about some cool, fun facts on manatees. Chapter 1. Spring comes to southern Florida. A huge gray animal moves slowly down a river toward the sea. It is a shy, harmless manatee. On her broad back, the manatee carries a brand new calf just born. He is 3 feet long and weighs 40 pounds. His name will be Sam. The manatee rises, so her calf's head is above the water. Soof! The calf breathes in. He breathes out. Even though a manatee lives in the water, it breathes air just like you and me. Minutes go by. Sam stays on his mother's back. She ducks him. Blah, 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 bee bubbles. Sam must hold his breath. His mother lifts him again to the air. He snorts happy for a breath. His mother ducks him once more. They practice this way until Sam breathes in the air and holds his breath underwater. Manatees nurse their young in the water. Sam finds a place beneath his mother's flipper when he's hungry. He sucks her warm milk. Manatees are mammals like whales and dolphins. Mammals feed their babies milk from special parts of their body called mammary glands. Sam follows his mother. She swims with her big tail. It is round and flat like a paddle. Up and down it goes. Sam swims with his 2 flippers. They're shaped like mittens. He will learn to use his tail later. Sam looks like his mother. He has little round eyes and a small head. He hears sounds, but he has no outside ears. Sam's body is almost hairless. It is shaped like a big pear. There's little Sam. Chapter 2. Sam stays near his mother for months. But one day, Sam hears a strange noise. Grrr! Sam is curious. He lifts his head to take a look, but he can't see far, not more than a foot. Eep, eep, eep! His mother squeals to warn him. Bam! Too late! A motorboat hits Sam. The propeller cuts him. Sam tumbles over and over. Surely he will drown. But his mother catches him just in time. She lifts him up to breathe. Motorboats are manatees' worst enemies. Luckily, Sam's skin is thick and tough. His wound heals, but leaves a scar between his eyes. Right there. It will be there for the rest of his life. Sam and his mother swim out to sea. Months go by. It is fall. They move back up a river to warmer waters. Mangrove trees grow thickly along the banks. Small silvery mullet fish leap out in front of them. Alligators snooze on the shore. Long-legged herons wade in the mud. That sounds like a pretty place. Sam is old enough now to eat plants, just like other manatees. He finds a bed of water hyacinths. They taste good. Manatees graze on floating hyacinths like cows in a pasture. Sam pokes his whiskered face into the plants. He tugs at them with 2 sides of his divided upper lip. He pulls them into his mouth. Munch, munch, munch. His flat teeth crush and grind the hyacinths. Sam needs lots of plants to feed his growing body. He eats many pounds of plants each day. Sam gets rounder and bigger. Sam rests when he is tired. He floats near the surface or lies on the river bottom, but he can't stay down more than 5 minutes. He must come up to breathe. Sometimes Sam pops up near fishing boats and surprises the fishermen. Chapter 3. Sam leaves his mother when he's 2 years old. He goes off on his own. Like other manatees, he spends the next few years swimming along the seacoast in the warm months and returning to the rivers in the cooler season. When Sam isn't eating, he goes exploring. He swims around wooden pilings, he searches under old piers, and he squeezes his body through narrow places. One day, Sam swims off into a canal. He finds a new place to explore. It's a big round cement pipe. He flips his tail, he pushes with his flippers, he wiggles and twists, he squirms half in, but then he can't get out again. Sam is stuck in a sewer drain. People hear Sam's cries. He is bruised, bleeding, and weak. They try to help him, but Sam is too big. Sam is 9 feet long. He weighs as much as 8 people. Sam can't be moved from the drain, so there he stays, half in, half out. He gets hungry and grows weaker. Poor Sam. More people come. Boys and girls run to see the stuck manatee. Newspaper people come too, but no one can budge poor Sam. They call this aquarium. Men come with trucks. They pull Sam out of the sewer drain and onto a stretcher. A crane lifts the stretcher and lowers Sam carefully onto a padded truck. It will take Sam to the seaquarium. The newspaper people call him Sewer Sam. Goodbye, Sewer Sam, the boys and girls call. Sam has a new home now. He lives in a round cement pool. Keepers care for Sam. They feed him lettuce leaves and bananas. Soon Sam is feeling well again. He swims around and around the pool. But there's nothing for him to explore here. Visitors come to the seaquarium. They come to see the killer whales dance on their tails. They come to see the dolphins jump through hoops. They come to see the sea lions catch and balance balls. Hardly anyone comes to see Sam. Sam cannot do any tricks. Chapter 4. A year passes slowly. The keepers think Sam is lonely. They put him in another pool so he can have company. 2 other manatees live there. Sam follows them around and around, but they're happy together and they don't want Sam. Poor Sam. The keepers finally decide to return Sam to a river, but they worry. Will Sam remember how to live in a river after so much time in the seaquarium? The keepers slip a stretcher under Sam. They fold his flippers in so they won't get hurt. Sam is lifted out of the pool and into a soft padded box. He is covered with moist cloths. Good luck, Sam. We'll miss you, a keeper calls. Sam is lifted to a truck and taken to an airplane. The pilot flies Sam to Crystal River, 300 miles away. Many manatees spend the winter in the warm waters there. Sam has never flown before, but he is calm and still, even when he is sprayed with water to keep his skin wet. Sam is lowered into the water. Men in rubber suits help Sam out of the box. They swim with him, but Sam tries to hide from them in the clump of weeds. What's this? Food? Munch, munch, munch. Sam eats the weeds. Days pass. The men watch over Sam. He seems happy to be free again. Other manatees are swimming in the river. Eep, 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 Sam calls them. He flips his tail and swims to them. One manatee turns to face Sam. He puts his snout right up to Sam's. They rub noses. They rub whiskers. The manatees begin to twist and roll. They pop up and down. They play follow the leader. And they swim off together. Goodbye, Sam. So we're going to read a little bit more about sea cows that the author is going to share with us, because this is actually based on a true story. So a sea cow is a large, gentle animal that lives in warm seas. There are two kinds of sea cows living today. One kind is called a dugong. It lives far away in the Indian Ocean. The other kind is the manatee. Manatees live nearer to us in the warmer parts of the Atlantic Ocean and in the Caribbean Sea. Once there were many thousands of sea cows. Sailors saw them lifting their heads above the waves. The sea cows looked like beautiful ladies to some of the lonely sailors. It isn't easy to mistake the wrinkled sea cow for a pretty woman, but that is how stories of mermaids, half woman, half fish, came to be told. There are a few sea cows left now. Some manatees still swim near the shores of Florida and in its warm bays, rivers, and canals. These manatees, like Sam, belong to the species Trichechus manatus. The manatee's ancestors lived on land ages ago. They grazed on plants and walked on four legs. Then some of these ancient animals went into the sea. The offspring of these creatures changed over thousands of years. Their forelegs became flippers, their hind legs disappeared. Only toenails remain today to show that manatees once had feet. Manatees look nothing like their cousins, the elephants, who stayed on land. This story about Sam is based on events that led to Sam's care at the Seaquarium in Miami, Florida, and to his release 13 months later in Crystal River on Florida's west coast. The helpful, friendly manatees clear Florida waterways that are choked with weeds, and they are now protected from harm by law. So that is Sam's true story of how he got from Miami to Crystal River. So what I want to share with you is a little bit of more, somewhat I think are fun facts, or might explain some parts of the story in a way that you might remember to be able to tell somebody else, because manatees are kind of cool. So right here, I don't know if you can see all of him. This is a life-size baby Sam the sea cow. He's about 3 feet long, but he's stuffed, so he doesn't quite weigh that 40 or 50 pounds. We've got his flippers here. He has that nice rounded tail that looks just like Mom's. If you see his cute little face, he has a little round snout. He has small little eyes. And if you were wondering where those pinhole ears are, they're located somewhere back here behind the eye on manatees. Now, this little guy is going to grow, right? We heard that Sam grew to be about 9 feet long. Manatees can grow to be 9 to 12 feet long. So the next time you're out driving around on the road and you see a Mini Cooper go by, you can be like, that's the size of an adult Sam the sea cow. Pretty big. They also weigh quite a lot. You heard them say it took, 8 people? The size of 8 people? So I'm gonna go grab a skull and I'm gonna show you the size of an adult manatee's head. Just the bones. This is a skull of a Florida manatee that we are lucky enough to have in our possession to show people like you and give you a good idea of size of the manatee's skull. Look how big this skull is relative to my head. Ta-da! This is a big animal. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, so here's his face, here's his nose, up here's where the eyes would be. I'm going to remove the upper jaw, or the upper skull, to show you the lower jaw. Now manatees will have 5 to 7 pairs of molars in their mouth, or teeth that look like molars. So those are the ones in the back of your mouth. And they look very similar. So this manatee, this is the lower jaw of the manatee. This particular animal had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pairs of molars. And as he munches on the grass and grinds down those seagrass blades, some of the front ones are going to wear away and they'll fall out. And what happens is we call these marching molars because the other teeth will move forward and a new tooth will pop up in the back. So 5 to 7 pairs of molars, just like us, very similar to us, very similar to cows grazing in that pasture like we talked about in the book. Now, in the book, we heard about Sam's scary encounter with a boat that gave him scars. So if you were wondering how that works, here's a little example of a propeller. Now, so here's a boat engine. The boat engine's here. The propeller's what's down in the water spinning to make the boat go forward. So now if you can imagine this propeller spinning and a slow manatee swimming under there, these blades are sharp. So every time that blade hits the back of a manatee, it's gonna cut the manatee. And when those cuts are kind of deep, it leaves a scar. And that scar would be like me if I moved this band from my wrist. You see how that band left a mark on my skin? But I might have that for the rest of my life, whereas I know this one will go away. The other thing is we have a rib of a manatee. Now, I am an adult person that's about 6 feet tall, and my ribs are here. Can you see how big this rib is? If I was a manatee and this was one of my ribs in the rib cage, this is a very big animal. But this particular rib bone, right, they're really heavy. I wish you guys could feel this and feel how heavy and solid these bones are. That's how they can just flop at the bottom and just lay there until they need to come up and breathe. But here you can see there's some weird bubble bump on the bone. And this is a rib that probably the side of the animal got bumped by a boat and maybe hurt the bones of the manatee, and this is what it looks like when the bone is starting to heal from getting hit by a boat. So these are some scary things that might happen to a manatee, and it's real easy for you and your family who own a boat to watch out while you're on the water. And if you see a sign that says go slow, no wake, manatee zones, just slow down. We don't want to cause any scars on a manatee. If you live on a river or in a canal here in Florida, you might have some dock lines in the water from where you tie up your own boat or maybe put out a crab trap. Don't let those lines just dangle if you're not using anything. Just coil up those dock lines and leave them up on the dry wood planks of your dock. That way the manatees don't get tangled in them and we don't produce scars. So instead of ending on this horrible note about scars on manatees, guess what? There are FWC manatee researchers who use those scars as a way to keep track of individual animals. So that is a positive thing that biologists have been able to use from the scars created by people who didn't realize the manatee was there in a positive way to help track their movements. So I told you at the beginning that we're here at the Manatee Viewing Center in Apollo Beach. This is a really cool place. It's free. You can bring your family, your friends. It's only open from November through the end of March. You'll have nice cool weather usually, see some manatees outside, and I'm gonna end with showing you some fun things to look for, right? Manatees are slow. They like to just hang out if they're not eating, and you might get a chance to look for some that have algae growing on their back. That's kind of cool. They look a little fuzzy. It could just be algae. Then there might be some manatees that you look at that look like there's little white bumps on their back. Well, some manatees move so slow, the barnacles can actually grow on their backs. And if you ever get a chance to really stare, maybe put up a pair of binoculars and look at the back, if the manatee's back is out of the water, or if you get to go to a zoo or an aquarium that has an underwater viewing center into a manatee tank, I want you to stare at the body of a manatee and see if you can see those hairs. Remember the book said almost hairless, but if you look really close, you will see single little hairs all over the manatee, all spaced out so that they will not touch each other. It's kind of cool. And maybe if you look real close at those flippers, you'll even see those toenails they talked about. So I hope you learned something today about manatees. Remember, it's up to us to help protect the manatees in our waterway, and I really hope you'll consider stopping by to get a chance to see a real manatee yourself here in Apollo Beach.